Welcome, everyone, to the Montessori Family Alliance. I'm Lorna McGrath, and I'm your host. I'm so glad to be with you today. If you come often, glad you're back. And if this is your first time joining us for the webinar, we're glad you're here. This one is geared toward people who either work with toddlers or who have toddlers at home and are working with them at home, or people that work with them at school, or people who work with them both, home and school. Annie Reiner is a Montessori toddler teacher extraordinaire, and she has agreed to come and be with us today at the webinar and share some of her big secrets. Maybe they're not big secrets. Well, they won't be after today anyways, about toilet training, because lots of people have questions about that and struggle with it sometimes. And it really doesn't need to be a struggle. So Annie, oh, did I say where you were from? You're from the Village Montessori School of Bluemont, Virginia. Has been there for quite a long time. I'll let her give you a couple of more details maybe that I haven't given already. Annie, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much for having me today, Lorna.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm super excited to be here, to be back. I was here 2 months ago doing Montessori in the home, and which actually might be a great video to go look at on the website, since what's going on currently in our country is we have a lot of people who suddenly find themselves working with their students at home. As different states start mandating shelter in places and other things. Today's topic is going to be on toileting. And as more people are now suddenly at home with their little toddlers, well, this is a great opportunity to start getting these skills in place. And maybe by the time school's back in session, you'll be ready to go in underwear. So this is actually a great topic for what's going on right now, because
no diaper changing, no more.
They're so excited.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, pull-ups. Oh, you guys are going to hear me do a mini rant about pull-ups, but that's okay. But a lot of people are very nervous and worried about toileting. How do I know when my child is ready? What do I need to have set up? And we're going to go over all of these things. I've been working with toddlers for over 15 years. I can't even count the numbers of diapers I've changed and the number of children that I've helped shepherd towards being independent in the bathroom, or if we were in England, the loo. So with that in mind, if we could go on to the next slide, we'll get started. So welcome. Thanks for being here today. Don't worry, your child is going to get this. Sometimes toilet learning, I've actually had parents call me on Saturdays saying, they'll never learn it. They'll never learn it. They will. They're not going to go to college still in pull-ups. It's going to be fine. You will make it through alive. You might have some really good stories on the other side, but you're going to make it. And we have your back. And I like that little sign over there. Everything is figure-outable with paper towels, because there seem to be a lot of those when you're cleaning up with toddlers. So ready? Let's go and talk about toilet learning. So the first question that a lot of people have, and I will tell you, my school does 2 major conferences a year. We have a conference in November and another big one in January. And pretty much 90% of what I spend time talking to parents about in those conferences is toilets. So it's probably the #1 topic that people have questions about. And they ask, when should I start? Now, usually when I answer this question, they go, oh no. In Montessori, there are what we call sensitive periods. And if you're a Montessori parent, you've probably heard about these before. I could go into the whole history of how Maria Montessori, heard about another scientist that was trying to figure out if animals had optimum times for learning certain skills. That's a whole different ball of wax. But basically, what Maria Montessori, one of the things she figured out in working with her children is that there are certain times in development when, oops, my cat is, sorry, this is working from home. The cat just tried to jump on the table. There are certain time periods in which a child's mind and body are really primed to pick up particular skills. We call these sensitive periods. And if you miss that window, things are often much, much harder to learn. And the first few years of life, 0 to 6, are loaded with sensitive periods.
Yes,
and one of them, there is actually a sensitive period for learning to use the toilet. So it ends at 18 months. Now, most parents who are asking me this question, their child has waved 18 months goodbye quite a long time ago, and they start to have a little panic. This doesn't mean your child isn't going to get it. It just means it might take a little more time and a little more, some different techniques. But if you happen to be watching this and you have a child that is 18 months or younger, you can get going on this now. As soon as your child is able to stand independently, you can start working on toileting skills. And the younger you start, the easier it is generally. Obviously, every child is different, but my experience has been that those young ones pick it up very quickly. And there's a reason for this. There is a time period that starts kicking in right around the end of 18 months that Maria Montessori called the defiant phase. I'm sure you may have seen it. It's when children start to realize that they are a separate entity from their parents, and they start trying to exert their will on the world by saying the word no a lot. I know I have toddlers in my classroom who say no to everything because they want to see what will happen. We would like toddlers to say yes to toileting and not be in that hardcore no brain development phase when we're trying to teach them this. So if you can start this process before your kid has a heavy case of the nose, it's going to go much, much easier. So, but if you've missed the window, don't panic. We're here to help. So you've decided you're going for it, okay? Who needs to be on board? Well, if you're the only person that is aware that you're about to start this process, it's going to become more complicated. You want to notify anybody who spends large amounts of time with your child. The babysitters, the nannies, anybody whose house you go to for play dates. Let the teacher know that you're ready to go for it. If grandma's coming to visit, you want her to know, because consistency helps these children get the skills faster. Toddlers are relative. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
May I interrupt for a moment?
Yes,
this
please.
Really strikes me that being the time that it is right now, with all of us being more or less homebound, this may actually be an even more perfect time, because you really don't have to let all these people know, because hopefully they're not in your house, not coming to visit, the child's not going to school. I mean, you may have to talk to the older siblings, you know. You may have to talk to your parenting partner, but it's kind of limiting the number of people that sometimes we have in our children's lives, you know.
Exactly. So this is actually a great time to do this. Plus, odds are you're going to be home with them. So they're going to be using the same toilet. I'm going to talk a little bit later in the presentation about different toilets out in the world. But you're right, Lorna. This is exactly the opportunity for consistency here is wonderful. So when you have anybody who's going to be working with this child, we want them all to have the same approach. If your child's been going great on the toilet for you, and then Aunt Mary comes over to visit and slaps that kid down on the diaper table and changes their pamper, that child's going to get really confused about what they're supposed to be doing. So We really want to have the consistency. Let anybody who's going to be working with that child know this is what we're doing going forward from today. This is where we keep everything. These are our procedures, so that you really have a united front. It'll make it much, much easier on the child.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So what do you need? You need a toilet your child is comfortable on, as near to the bathroom as possible. In the bathroom is great, but some people have really small bathrooms. And so trying to fit some children, they want to use a potty seat or something lower first. But what you don't want to do is put it in your dining room or your kitchen. I had a parent once who said, I don't understand. He keeps going to the bathroom on the dining room floor. And it's because they had put their toilet seat. So the child thought that that was a room to go to the bathroom in. So you want to get it.
I want to just stop you for a second again, because I have a question. When my little Otis, my grandson, was toilet training, he learned very quickly, and his mom did a great job. But in their home, there's a downstairs, which is the main living part of the house. And then upstairs are the bathrooms and the bedrooms. And so, what do you do when you have 2 stories in your house and your bathroom is not in the part of the house that you're almost always in?
If you've got a half bath down there, that's fantastic. Most of the houses that I've run into, if they are multiple stories, they've got like a half bath there that they could stick it in. I mean, obviously everybody's house is different. If you're in, like in my town, some people are living in remodeled train stations, because that's what the town has. The bathroom might be in a wild place. Yeah. Keep it away from areas like the kitchen, the dining room, the living room. A corner of the child's bedroom would be okay. Maybe the laundry room in a pinch. But just remember, whatever room you put that in, you're essentially telling this little person, it's okay to go to the bathroom in this room. Okay. So you really want to try to associate, we do these things in this room as much as you possibly can.
I love that. What a great point.
So you want a toilet your child is comfortable on. A lot of young children are afraid that the toilet's going to suck them down, and they're very intimidated by the big toilet, even with a toilet seat on it. It's okay to get one of those little potties to start with that sits on the ground next to it. If you can, go for a step stool and a toilet seat so your child gets used to sitting on the real seat. That's our ideal situation, because first off, who wants to be emptying that thing all the time? And right. Second, if you're out in public, if you're out in public somewhere and your child's got to go, they don't have access to that. Yeah. So you're going to want to get them used to using a real toilet as much as possible. What I say to the children in my classes, I can hold your hands while you're sitting on the toilet, so that, and I've actually taken something really big before and put it in a toilet bowl and flushed it and said, see, it won't go anywhere. So because they do get nervous about that. You want to have lots of underwear, pants, socks, and shoes for any location that your child is staying in. So if you are taking your child to school, make sure you've got a lot of those pants, socks, and shoes there, because there's going to be issues where they don't go to the bathroom when they're supposed to as they're learning, and things get soiled, and there's nothing worse than having to be like, no, we're out of pants. You're probably going to be doing a lot of laundry through this phase. I always tell parents that when you're getting ready to start this, take a trip to Walmart and buy yourself as many pairs of the cheapest sweatpants as you possibly can. We don't want your child to be a fashionista at this point. We want them to be able to get their pants on and off easily so that they can become independent. Go to Target, dig through the hand-me-down piles, and stock yourself up.
Yeah, and I think another thing that people sometimes do, especially when they're at home, is they just let their child be in their underwear rather than having to pull down pants and things. Now, it depends on the time of the year, depends on the comforts of the, how comfortable people are with that. But sometimes that does help in making it easier for the child.
Yeah, I've actually seen people who say, we're just going to do toilet learning boot camp and you're going naked from the waist down at home this week. And, and that's going to get us where we need to go. Now, the child is going to, I haven't had a parent this year who did that, and it was great. But as soon as the child came back to my class, he was ready to go completely naked from the waist down. And I said, Betty, we really do need to wear underwear at school. And so, he started working on the timing, because one of the things the child is going to have to work on is a lot of times they're busy doing something fun and they realize that they have to go, but they don't want to stop doing the fun thing. So they start trying to postpone it. And by the time it's now an emergency and they're running for the bathroom, they don't have enough time to get their clothes off before it happens. So the child is going to have to learn how to budget in time to remove their clothing, because they are eventually going to have to go to a public place.
Sure. Another thing that triggers emergencies is if they're putting their hands in water. So if they're scrubbing a table or washing dishes or washing their own hands even, that can trigger that reaction in the body, and then they just don't have time. They just kind of go, and it's a surprise for everybody.
We've also noticed, in addition to that the water on your hands making you have to go, dramatic changes in temperature will happen. We'll do the same thing. We'll have circle time. We'll get all the kids bundled up. We'll say, does anybody think about your body? Does anybody need to use the bathroom? Everybody's fine. We get out to the playground, and going from warm to winter cold, suddenly they all have to go at the same time, and vice versa. So, and that leads into what is next on our list, a consistent schedule. And this is what I call train theory, okay? So I tell parents, imagine that your child's schedule for the day is like you're on a train. Okay, there's certain stations during your day. There's breakfast, there's lunch, there's dinner, there's nap time, there's maybe their favorite TV show that they like, there's going outside to play. I pick the stops on the day that are the things the child likes to do the most. Food for toddlers is generally the thing they like to do the most, or going outside. So a lot of toddlers, you'll say to them, do you need to go to the bathroom? And they'll go, no, especially if they're getting into that defiant phase. So, but I know, because I've had this child in my class for half of a year, that about 20 minutes after they eat, they're going to go to the bathroom. When you work with children enough, you have an idea of when they're probably going to go. Or they're doing that little dance that toddlers do when you can tell they need to go. So what I do is I pick the stops on the day that I know the children like to do the best. And I make sure that there is an attempt to go in to use the restroom before that fun thing happens. So for example, we're going to get ready to go outside, and I see a kid dancing over in the corner. Do you need to use the toilet? No. Okay, well, before we take everybody outside, everyone needs to go in and give it a try. Okay? So that child who just says no all the time, try doing that. Then they're like, oh, well, if I use the toilet now, then I'll be able to go outside when everybody goes outside. And what they start doing is learning, before I do this next thing, I'm going to try to use the restroom. Now, most kids you don't need to do that with. They just go in and they go when they need to go. But if you have one of those children who says no every time you ask them if they need to go, I just state very clearly, well, we're not going to be baking cookies until everybody here's use the restroom. I'm going to go give it a try myself. And They seem to get on board a little bit faster with that. Put the thing they don't really want to do right before the thing they do want to do.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing in there too. Remember that if you ask a yes or no question, then they have the option of saying yes or saying no. So if it's a kid that you know often says no, then you don't want to ask that type of question. You want to say something like, it's your turn to go to the bathroom, or it's your turn to sit on the toilet, or whatever it is, rather than asking them, would you like to go, or do you need to go? It's more like, yeah, it's your turn, time to go.
And usually if you just say, hey, it's your turn. In the classroom, it's a little bit easier because I can say, so-and-so is also waiting to use it, so we need to go ahead and take our turn. And you can even do the same thing. Somebody else needs to use the restroom, so it's your turn to go ahead and go. Usually if they're being given a turn, they feel much more favorable about it.
Absolutely. Annie, I can't believe it, but we have about 7 minutes left. I know.
Okay, I'll go down real quick the rest of this one because this was one of our biggest ones. A toilet tour. You're not going to really need that at home if you're stuck inside now. But when you do get back out in public, take your child to visit the toilets in the places you normally go, the Starbucks, the library, so that when they do need to go, those places aren't scary to them. And have your go bag of backups there. You're also going to need patience. And then under what do I not need? Pull-ups, because they're pretty much a gimmick by the Pampers company to keep you paying them longer. And anything else that they develop that looks like it's in that vein. And don't worry, it's going to be fine. Next slide, please.
Okay.
There's so much conflicting information on the internet. What do I do? I'm just not going to read all of this through for you, but here's the deal. Earlier really is developmentally better, and it can be much better for the physical health of your child. I'll just read you the last line on this. There is also evidence that early trainees are at lower risk for developing problems with incontinence later in life. That's just one of the things that makes me an advocate for early training. There's a million things on the internet. I didn't toilet my child until he was 9. The evidence that's out there says this is really what we should be doing at a younger age.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Sure. Petal, Annie, there's one of our people that come pretty much all the time, Heddle, is on, and she's asking for us to share some articles. And that, as you said, there's so many out there. I think rather than sharing articles, you might want to just ask your teacher if there's something they could read or you could read. But Annie's giving you some great information here. And if you want, Heddle, just email me and we'll see what we can come up with for you. Okay. Shall we go to the next one?
Sure.
All right.
I know we could literally talk about this for hours. That's such a good topic. So we're going to talk here about how do I start introducing toilet learning to my child? Standing changes. The reason for this is that when a child is lying down on a table, well, if you've ever tried to change them on a table, they roll, they kick, they don't have anything to do. We want to engage the child in the process. So we're going to change their diapers when they're standing up instead of lying down. I know this sounds terrifying, but after you've done it a couple of times, it is easy peasy lemon squeezy. I do have a mat in my room because social services requires me to have one. It is still in the original plastic sitting behind a shelf, and I've had it for 8 years. I've never used it. So this can be done, okay? The standing changes encourage the child to become a participant in the process. They're going to be busy. They have to maintain their balance and help hold their clothes. And so they're not just a wiggly entity that you're trying to get poop off of. Oops, my screen went back.
I don't know what happened.
That's okay. I'll keep talking about standing changes while you're there. So what you're going to do is the first thing I do. The first thing I do in my classroom is I ask the child to go get their diaper out of a drawer. So they're going to go get it and bring it to me. And then I'm trying to let the child do whatever they can do on their own. Older children are going to be able to do a little more than the other children. So if the child can pull their pants down by themselves, great, they're going to do that. If they can pull off their diaper tabs and I'm sitting there ready to catch that diaper, great, they can do that. The only time, I mean, complete blowouts where you basically need to bathe the child are pretty rare. Pretty much anything can be handled. Most anything can be handled with a good package of wipes. So, you know, you're going to be helping the child to do all of it. We invite them to sit on the toilet each time they're changed, even if they're still in diapers. And even if they don't do anything in the toilet, they can practice wiping, flushing, and of course, they're going to wash their hands. There's more skills to using the toilet than just going in the toilet. There's dressing, undressing, balance, wiping, washing hands, all of this. And so if you can get some of those skills mastered at a different time, then the child doesn't have to learn them all at once and it doesn't feel nearly as overwhelming for them. Next slide, please. What they wear makes a difference. So I cannot tell you how many times I've had children in my class come in and they're wearing Mick Jagger leather pants while they're learning to toilet. And they can't get their pants off by themselves. Or they're in overalls. Or they're in those onesies with the 60 million snaps up through the crotch. Remember, your child is going to be getting undressed under extreme time pressure. And we want them to be, or bladder pressure, and we want them to be successful. So even if you have a tiny fashionista, please forego that while they're getting these skills down. Because the worst thing in the world is a child who actually told you they needed to go. You ran with them to the bathroom as fast as you could. They were so proud that they were going to make it. And then they're wearing some extremely complicated fashion outfit that you and the child cannot get off in time. And they wet themselves and they're very sad. So sweatpants are your friend. Please go to the next slide. In Montessori, we use real words for things. We're not trying to use the cute made-up words. I cannot tell you how many made-up words for poop I have heard in my career. It's a lot, and some of them are super weird. We're going to actually talk to the child using the scientific terms for what they are doing. They're having a BM or a bowel movement. They're not going doo-doo or poopy or whatever else. All of these different terms can confuse the child. If your teacher at school is using the Montessori correct terms and you're using them at home and everyone else around you is using them, the child's going to understand what's going on a lot better than if everybody who interacts with them is using a different term. And we don't want the child to be confused. Body functions are nothing to be ashamed of. They're part of how we work. The most popular book in my classroom is called Everybody Poops. And it's an entire book about poop and where it goes after you flush it and, you know, all how bowel movements work, and the children are fascinated. So, you know, it's okay to use real words with them on this. Next slide, please. How long will it take? Usually not as long as you fear. Consistency is the key. If everyone who's working with the child is basically doing the same routine and has the same expectations when helping that child in the bathroom, it's going to go a lot faster. And if you start before you hit that defiant period, it's going to go a lot faster. Now, if there is a mess, because there's going to be a mess, we're doing what Montessori all said, that our actions all have natural consequences. That's the cornerstone of Montessori discipline. So if a child does, you know, wet the floor or go in their pants or whatever it is, you want the child to be part of the process of cleanup. Now, I know you're going, yeah! They don't have to do everything, but remember, all of those are skills that they're going to need to know to take care of themselves. And if a child is, maybe you have a slightly older child and they're just peeing all over the place and they know you're going to clean it up, and there's absolutely, it's not going to put a cramp in their style. They're going to go back to their Legos. That's going to take a lot longer than a child that realizes if they do, not do what they're supposed to do, and they're going to have to stop the fun thing they're doing and help fix the situation. Generally, they start fixing the situation a lot quicker. So involve the child in all of the processes. Our next thing is readiness. What's the main factor that stops most children from being ready? Usually it's because the parents aren't ready. I've had parents who saying goodbye to diapers means they're saying goodbye to babyhood, and maybe they're not quite ready for that yet. Or they think diapers are really convenient and the toilet learning looks like it's going to be hard and complicated. I've had children who say I've heard them say to their parents, "Mom, I don't want to wear diapers anymore." If your child can say that to you in a complete sentence, they probably shouldn't be in diapers anymore. I know it's hard when you think your child is leaving babyhood and that this is a sign of it, but there's other wonderful things to look forward to. There really, really is, and they're always going to be your baby. So if the child is ready and they're interested in being involved and doing it with you, don't stop them because you're afraid their babyhood is over. We're trying to help the child be independent. Next slide, please. Can I start and stop? What if I started for a few weeks, but now I got busy and I want to put the pull-ups back on? Please don't do that. Please, pretty much once you're in it to win it, people. So get everybody on board, get organized, and go. Because if you start and stop, that child may feel like I failed. And we don't ever want our children to feel like failures. Mm-hmm. Now, there are children with special needs that may take much longer to toilet. I worked with children with autism before. They're famously usually take a lot longer to learn toileting skills than some other children. If your child has special needs, there's going to be some adjustments to this plan. And of course, your pediatrician and your teachers and all that can help you with those. But for the most part, if you can get them started young, you're consistent, you've got a plan, and everybody's going to be on board. This is going to be done before you know it. Have a plan. Follow that plan. Yes, you can really do this. And you have support systems all around you. Call up your parents and ask them what it was like when you were toilet trained. And I bet you will hear stories. I know my mom used to give me an M&M every time I went in the toilet, and now I have a strange craving for chocolate every time I go to the water closet, right? So share these stories with other parents, with your family members. They're all out there. They're part of growing up, and it's all going to be okay.
I love it.
Next slide, please. You can do this. So can your toddler. Odds are they are ready for you to walk in there and start a standing change today. Go get those toilet skills, people.
I'm ready. I wish I had a toddler in my house.
I got a classroom full of them. When school gets back, you can go.
Okay, all right. Oh, Annie, that was great. Thank you so much for sharing all that wonderful stuff with us today.